is where we came from the day before yesterday, before our 0 day. And we are now continuing north on the Appalachian Trail. Good morning, everyone. I had a good, productive, restful 0 day in North Adams, but boy, I'm ready to be back on the trail. I've got positive news. The weather forecast has cleared up this weekend. We were originally forecasted to have 3 days of continuous rain starting tomorrow, and it was going to call into question whether or not I was going to be forced into some 0 days. However, it has cleared up. We're looking for 2 great days of hiking the next 2 days, and then some evening rain on the 3rd day into the morning of the 4th day. So essentially, while I am either in my tent or in a shelter. So the great news is, it is not going to stop me from hiking. Which is exactly where I want to be. I am excited for today. Here in about 2.3 miles, I'm going to cross 2 big milestones in consecutive order. I'm going to cross the 1,600 mile mark today. And boy, trying to wrap my brain around that. Walked 1,600 miles. And I will be crossing into Vermont today. Excited for both. It's going to be a 20-mile day in total, going to the Melville Nauheim shelter, just past the town of Bennington, Vermont. And so, going to be some climbs, going to have some descents, but it's going to be a great day on the AT. Weather's going to be perfect. Let's go ahead and get started. Yesterday's rain has filled the streams. It's going to be a good water day. And right off the bat, we're going to start off a 1,700-foot elevation climb. These rocks are exactly why rainy days may prompt me to an unscheduled 0. Lots of slick, sharp, pointy rocks. We are on top of the ridge now after our first big climb. Still slowly gaining in elevation, really, but it's not bad. As you can see, the trail really smoothed out. Everyone, 1,600 miles. Less than 600 to go. 594.3 miles remaining. One milestone down for the day. 1,600 miles completed. We're getting closer. Smooth, steady progress. That's my goal right now. Don't get too eager. Just let the miles come. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Same as I've done for the last 1,600 miles. Welcome to Vermont. It's at this point that the Appalachian Trail combines with the Long Trail. The Long Trail is about 273 miles. The AT follows it consecutively for about 105 miles. But suffice it to say, we're in Vermont. So my travels have taken me 1,600 miles, and so far across 11 states. Only 3 more remain. I have to complete Vermont, and then lying ahead are New Hampshire, and of course Maine. It's an overwhelming feeling, but I do recognize that the hardest parts of the trail are just ahead of me. This is a beaver pond. Here you can see where the beavers have dammed up the stream. I'm not a beaver expert. I'm pretty sure that's where their lodge would be. This is the Congdon Shelter. It has been a while since we've had a shelter right on the AT. It's 14 miles into the day. I'm gonna stop here for lunch. So we are back at it after lunch, and it has been relatively slow going for a lot of today because of mud. The rocks themselves aren't very slick, It's just a matter of dodging through muddy areas in an effort to keep my feet dry. It's kind of a rock hopping sort of day, and when it's not rocks, sometimes it's roots, sometimes it's logs in the trail, anything that you can step on to stay out of the mud. Now, Vermont is affectionately referred to as Vermud by hikers. It's no way of knowing right now if the mud we're experiencing is the infamous Vermud, or if it's just a byproduct of the full day of rain yesterday, or both. Vermont has very rocky soil and not that much soil to boot. And so because of lack of soil density and rocks, there's a little place for water to go after a good rain. The ground can only absorb so much, and so the rest lays on the trail. Anyway, hasn't been bad in terms of terrain, elevation profile, steepness, or grade. Just a bit muddy. Where we haven't had mud today, we've sort of had these, loose rock areas. Hasn't been too difficult. Again, the rocks aren't slick today. Just really kind of using the rocks as stepping stones. I'm actually able to move faster on these rocky uphills than I am across the flatter, muddy areas. All right, our first view from Vermont. We are on Harmon Hill, looking down at the town of Bennington. So we are descending from Harmon Hill into Woodford Hollow. Route 9 runs through the bottom of this descent in Woodford Hollow. And from there, a hiker can get a shuttle or a taxi into the town of Bennington, Vermont. There's a lot of services there. We're not going in there. We're going to continue north, but this descent is really the first steep descent that we've experienced all day, and we're 18 miles into the day. Glad the rocks are dry. And since we climbed down into Woodford Hollow, we now get to climb up the other side. Our shelter is up this little side trail. AT continues northward. We're gonna pick it up there tomorrow. So everybody, I got to the Melville-Nauman shelter, and let's just say there was no room at the inn. There's only 3 tent pads at that shelter, and 2 of the tent pads were taken, and the 3rd remaining unused location really was not usable. It wasn't level. It was rocky and rooted on the ground, so it wasn't going to make a good tenting site. And I couldn't go into the shelter because there were some section hikers inside cooking and eating. And you just shouldn't cook and eat in the shelters. And it just so happened that these were the same section hikers that used the 2 tent sites. And add to that, one of them was hiking with a dog, and the dog was inside the shelter eating as well. And they had their gear like all over the place inside the shelter. And I could tell it was going to be a tense night. And I was not going to want to sleep in the shelter after they had been eating in there, either them or their dog spilling food in the shelter. And then the cooking leaves food smells inside the shelter, which attracts, any creature that's attracted to food smells. Rodents, black bears, raccoons, you name it. And so, after all of that, I decided I was going to move on. And so, I am now headed to the Goddard shelter. It's going to add 8.5 miles to my day, but that's okay. I actually had been contemplating pushing forward anyway. I arrived at the Melville-Nauman shelter at 3:45, and I don't like leaving so much usable hiking time laying on the table, if you will. And so I'm moving on. I've got plenty of time to get there, and my body feels good. It's unfortunate, a little bit aggravating, or at least it could be if I'd let it get to me. But I'm looking at the silver linings here. I'm getting in more miles when I have time. The hiking is pretty easy now that I've finished that climb, and I'm sort of on top of the ridge, and it really is a beautiful day for hiking. We've been in the woods pretty much all day. Haven't had very many views, but it's okay. The breeze is blowing nicely. It's keeping the mosquitoes down. I haven't had to swat a single bug all day today. I mean, what's not to love about that? Anyway, we're gonna head to the Goddard shelter. Well, everybody, we are starting our last climb of the day. We're going up Glastonbury Mountain. We're not going to summit it today. We're actually going to summit it tomorrow morning. We're going to stop about 3/10 of a mile from the top because that is where the Goddard shelter is located. So just about an 800-foot elevation climb. That's all we have left for the day. So everybody, we are at the Goddard shelter. It's a really nice shelter. It looks reasonably new. Sleeps probably at least 8, maybe even more on the inside. It's got a covered deck. It's got some bench seating. It's got some nice rails. I'm set up in the shelter tonight. There's some tent area behind it. It's got a nice privy, a bear box, and even a pipe spring right nearby. It's going to be a good place to rest. So everybody, it was a very good day. I ended up making it into the shelter about 7:15, I guess. So all in all, it was a 28.5 mile day. The terrain so far in Vermont, I'm loving it. It started out, there was some rocks, there was some mud, but it was easily bypassed. The rocks are easily, to travel on or travel around. And of course there's roots and things like that. But the grade has been very pleasant. This afternoon was just a joy to walk in. Thrilled to be in Vermont and absolutely thrilled to have hit the 1,600 mile mark today too. I appreciate it, everybody. I look forward to tomorrow. Thanks for all your support. I'm Bricks.